Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tub Takes. This week, we have three special guests from Baltimore Regionals, and I am really excited to talk with all you guys. So first and foremost, we have your Baltimore Regional champion. We have. Do you go by Nick or Nicholas? I didn't get to ask you.
Hello. Nick is fine. Nick is fine, Nicholas. I prefer Nick.
All right. Well, we have Nick. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I was sick at Baltimore, so I'm still sick. I'm just trying to recover.
You were sick with it at Baltimore. I'll tell you that.
If anyone was back there with me, they would have heard me dying in the backstage.
Oh no. Well, it makes your win even more impressive. And then second, not on camera, but we do have Lorenzo, who got top 8. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm very glad to be here. Super happy that I was able to get the top 8 because I've been going to a lot of regionals, and this is definitely my best finish. So yeah, super happy to be here. A little bit less happy that it was with Dozo. I used to have cool teams, and then it kind of evolved into the fish. But yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And then last but not least, we have Toler, who got top 4. How are you doing?
I am just fine. We are chilling. I think Lorenzo is underselling how cool his team is because
That team
we were
was
talking about it. It's
awesome,
like, well, what if you?
It was
We
so-
were
that
talking
team was
about
so
like what I would do
cool.
if I even got to finals because all the matchups looked bad. And it was like, oh well, what if Dawe gets there? It's like, well, Dawe beat me in Swiss. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, oh, what if Lorenzo gets there? It's like, well, it would be beatable if he didn't have coaching.
Yeah, the coaching was gas. I haven't
Coaching
seen
is
that.
so gas. Like that.
Yeah,
That's
no,
so cool.
we'll get into it later, but I
Yeah.
think the Dozo like hyper offense. It's kind of a hyper offense team, right? Like if you don't stop it, then Dozo just kind of runs you over.
Rolls you over.
So
Yeah. I thought it was cool.
Thank you.
I think you're underselling it. Well, I know what you're comparing to, right? Is like the team that you played me with in Charlotte, which was like insane.
Well, yeah, I generally I either run something that's similar to a Jamie Boyd team, or I run one of my own creations, which is they're interesting, I'll say.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, hi.
Okay, so we do have a little bit of housekeeping before we. I'm so excited to talk about all of your runs, but we do have a little bit of housekeeping first. So first and foremost, this is a weekly video podcast. I actually gained a ton of subscribers from the team building video, so if you're new here, welcome. This is a weekly video podcast that we do live on twitch.tv/TubNationTV, and then it's up on YouTube as well. So if you're watching live on Twitch and you can't catch the entire thing, make sure to check it out on YouTube tomorrow morning. And then the other housekeeping is we have a lot of announcements from Pokemon this week. I didn't realize, but we had a new special event announced. This one is going to be in Italy, in Bologna, on May 31st to June 1st. So look forward to that for all of our European viewers. Any of you guys attending the Bologna special event by any chance? No?
Most likely not, unless I am super desperate for points at the end of the season.
Yeah, but yeah, this should be fun. The Italians, of course, have been dominating the grassroots scene, and we had another Victory Road tournament that we might get a chance to talk about. We got a lot to talk about today. They really took over there as well. So obviously, always excited to see this. We don't even know what format this is going to be in. But yeah, so this is announced, and I think on stream, I saw a lot of complaints. Just as a tangent, because that's what I do. I go on tangents. As a tangent, we saw on stream they had the list of regionals and then a bunch of like TBAs for the 3 regionals that aren't announced yet. And so look forward to more regional announcements upcoming. And I think the one that they haven't announced in January is supposedly going to be in San Antonio. So look forward to that.
I'm hoping that one will be an announced one since it's in Florida.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I don't think we have a Florida regional announced yet, do we?
No,
I don't think so. No.
So yeah, that would make a lot of sense. We normally have one in Florida. And so yeah, look forward to that. I wish they would announce it earlier so we can kind of plan our seasons a little better. But you know, as they're rolling out, it's nice to hear about them. And then of course, speaking of events, we also have the Latin American internets that are coming up, and signups started today, and they also ended today. Wave 1 got most of the way through before they had some issues with credit cards, which made it so people could no longer register. And Wave 2 was supposed to happen today, but in fact, they have been delayed to an undetermined time until they figure out exactly what is going on. So if you were trying to sign up and you couldn't figure out what was going on, That's what's going on. Keep an eye out on Arcanine Labs, as well as I think Play Pokemon was tweeting about it. So just keep an eye out on their Twitters or their other social media to get understanding of when the second wave is going to sign up if you are going and you missed the first wave, because these slots run out fast, especially for internationals. You do not have a lot of time to register, and so yeah, just keep an eye out and try to sign up as soon as possible, as soon as the payment issue between Stripe and Copag can be sorted out. Are any of you guys going to the Latin American Internats by any chance?
No, but I'm gonna be watching it closely though. They always have their teams are always so interesting, and like the takes out how they build all their teams and all that. Like when they were doing the last regulation, I loved all their Terrapagos teams. The takes that they had on it, they were running the Calm Mind ones with the Clefairy. I love that.
Yeah, and they were the only ones really running Volcarona, which is really cool.
I mean, like just to, if I recall, Dorian built that team with Edu, so it was a joint Europe, Latin America project, which is kind of sick.
Interesting.
Yeah,
but I might be misremembering. I don't know.
I'm going to take your word for it.
I heard tell.
So now you know what, Edu, you get to take credit for it too.
Yeah. Even if he gets credit.
And then speaking of a place to find some wacky teams, the last tournament that you should really not forget to sign up for, everyone should sign up for this one, is the Grand Challenge, the first of, I think, 8 Grand Challenges this season, Grand or Global Challenges. The online tournament is going to start on Thursday evening for us players in North America. And you do have to sign up before then. You can't sign up after it starts, and you have to lock your team when you sign up. Every single time this happens, I know people who forget to sign up for these tournaments and regret it. Don't forget to sign up. This is your like 48-hour warning to make sure that you have your team ready and you can sign up ahead of time. And I assume that all 3 of you guys are going to be playing in that.
Yeah, I'm going to be trying to playing with it in it. Hopefully all 45 games. I think the new format where there are more GCs than the BFL. Like, I think the best finish limit is still 3, but there's going to be like 7 or 8 of them. I think that's a good change. And I mean, the GC is always wacky because you always run into like at least one team that just blows your mind, like that somebody came up with this. But I think it's fun, even if it's a little bit chaos. I think it's fun.
Best of one's always going to be chaos, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not my preferred format, but it's not the only way we get points. Our region has other ways of qualifying for Worlds, so I can't complain too much.
Well, all you youngins complaining about best of one when close sheets the only way I played the game for 10 years. You're gonna have to let it go. No, I'm excited to play, and I don't have a team because my my Baltimore team is so best of 3 open sheety, which is a common trend with Ensign Among Us teams. Is they're a lot easier to play when you know where the goggles are and you know where you can parting shot because of clam, and like you can just make like more informed decisions. I'm gonna have to build something, but I'm planning to play.
Yeah, and best of one close team sheet, you click fake out and then you run into the random convert clip. Like,
There we go.
Exactly.
Yep.
I will say, I think the team that I was running at Baltimore is very good in best of one close.
Yeah, I mean, like you don't have to do anything if you don't want to.
So I might run it back. I haven't thought that far yet, but maybe.
Yeah. Well, and so notably also the Global Challenge awards more points than ever. And I think I mentioned this last week, but Nails and I were doing the math, and there's a world where this counts for 30% of your Worlds invite. I think it's going to be between 20 and 30% for most players who are, in maybe that 50 to 75 range in NA. So this is a big deal. You do have a lot of chances to do it, but there's a you can see 120 points across 3 tournaments. If you get 360 points or even more than that somehow from the global challenges, you are in a really, really good spot, provided you can also back it up with some regional finishes. So at least for me, having not going to Baltimore, I figured this is my first tournament of the format, really. This is the first tournament that counts. This is the equivalent to getting top 64 at Baltimore if I can swing this and do well here. So I've been putting a lot of prep, and let me tell you, Toler, I agree with you. Closed team sheet, man, I miss closed team sheet. I did not realize how much I missed it until I started actually building for a closed team sheet. But all the really fun, creative ideas that you have that sort of get eliminated in the process of refining your team for best of 3 format. You can do a lot of really fun stuff here. throw out a lot of surprises at people, have some really creative answers to some of the common threats. And so I'm always excited to see what comes out of this, and I've been having a lot of fun playing it.
I guess one thing I'll say related to building for closed team sheets, or I think a lot of people will think along. I know Adi, you have a more principled position than just throw whatever fun cheese you can on the team and like hope it works. It's like you still have to test for closed team sheets. You still have to do principled stuff. Like there's a really I say this a lot of people that are like, oh, I want to build for the global or grand challenge or whatever. And the way that I'm going to build is I'm going to pick this arbitrary cheese that I want to run and then slam people with it. And that's a really great way to get like 30 or 40 points. But there's a really good reason why in these tournaments, typically, the teams that end up winning are teams that you would almost see in open sheet best of 3, but with like some slight tweaks. There's nothing that beats a well-built, well-constructed, well-rounded team, even when you have no idea what your opponent is doing and they're running like Choice Banded, Roaring Moon, and Sun or something. So like, I think it's important to like fit in your surprises and be judicious about it, but they need to serve a purpose. That's Pokemon Dad reminding you to build your GC teams carefully.
Yeah, and in particular, I think that like yes, surprises are cool, but what really is powerful is Pokemon that can run a lot of different sets. So your opponent has to respect a lot of different options, but you still have like inherently powerful constructed team, even if they knew what was going on. I think that in 2022, I forgot who wrote this article. There was a fantastic team report about this, and they chose to use Thundurus, and they very proactively chose to use Thundurus because it could use the support set or the more aggressive set. And so every single game, your opponent leaves Thundurus, and you have to play that mind game, and that is just such a powerful dynamic. And so yeah, be aware of that. Pokemon like Goldego that can be Specs or Nasty Plot are really powerful, even though Nasty Plot Goldie isn't like a crazy GC tech. It does get better when people don't know which button you're clicking. Stuff like that I think is a good way to approach the format.
Yeah, really good rule of thumb is like, if your opponent could see your sheet, would you automatically lose? And if the answer is yes, then you've built too cheesy of a team. And then yeah, if a really good player could see your sheet, would you still have a good chance at winning? So like you can balance between the two.
Yeah. And I do want to recommend this video that Alex helped make, or he made it. I just uploaded it to my channel, where he streamed like an hour and a half about how to build best of 1, because he also had a global challenge that he focused in. So I'm going to link that in the I'm going to link that on Twitch as well. So I definitely recommend that you try this. Watch the video if you are still kind of figuring out how to build for best of 1. This was a fantastic explanation for how he approached it.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting format. Best of 1 closed team sheet. I do think you can get away with some sort of cheesy strategies sometimes, because if you can, like, sometimes it only takes one turn for you to get a setup strategy off, and you just kind of win the game from there because your opponent wasn't expecting it. At least if it was best of 3 closed team sheet, you could, okay, you can't pull that trick twice, but in best of 1 you kind of can, because it's best of 1. But yeah, like of course, when you look at the top teams that win the global challenge, it generally is something fairly standard, maybe with a unique Terra type, a unique move on a certain mon, or something like that.
And so with that, I know next week I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about the global challenge results, and we'll have or grand challenge results rather. We're going to have a lot to talk about with the teams that come out of that. That's always a really fun place to see how people continue to develop the meta. This is the first big tournament that a lot of people who didn't get to go to Baltimore are going to have prepared for and have hidden their ideas for. Especially important to hide your ideas for this one, right? So we'll talk a lot more about that next week. But this week we have the first major tournament of the year at Baltimore Regionals, and we have 3 players who did really, really well. So I want to hear about your experiences at Baltimore and your tournament runs and your teams. And of course, we can start with the winner, Nick. Tell us about your experience at Baltimore and why you chose to run the team that you did.
I had a lot of fun at Baltimore. Baltimore was my first regional ever, so like I can't really give you guys like, I don't know how other regionals are really supposed to be run and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the Swiss and all that. From what I heard, it was a different kind of Swiss. It was What was the
That's
day 2 top cut again? It was
asymmetric top cut. That's what they call it.
Right. Okay.
Basically, whoever is tied in record with the person who is in 8th place makes it to the top cut bracket, but they have to like cut it down to top 16 and then top 8, essentially.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I was testing a lot of teams before going in. I was between the rain team I was going with and some kind of Volk balance team. And I just ended up going with the rain team because I felt like the rain team was a bit more comfortable and it just felt better overall.
Mhm.
I think the rain, mostly like the standard 4 on rain are Arch, Peli, Amoonguss, Basque. I added Incin because I thought Volk would be a lot more common. And it really helped out with Volk and Golden Go. And then the Mousehold was actually for the Archald on Rain Dittos. That was the main reason it was on the team. But it ended up I ended up bringing it a lot in Swiss. I didn't bring it on stream until finals, but in Swiss I was bringing it a lot because there was just like random stuff I'd be able to pick up KOs on, like random Sashmons, or like random stuff that would I would just be able to pick up the KOs on that people just wouldn't expect.
Yeah, and so you posted the paste on your Twitter. I'm going to pull that up right now. If people want to try it
that
out.
paste is wrong. That paste is wrong. The Master HP doesn't have HP. It's supposed to have attack. The old one I was testing on Showdown had HP.
Mm-hmm. And so it's funny because you mentioned, you told me this in DMs that you changed this at the last minute as you were trading the Mousehold up, and then it came up over and over again. And I even ran the calc for the damage roll into Paul's Dragonite that ended up winning you the entire tournament. And of course, it came up there again all the way in finals. So it's always cool to see those changes that you make, the last minute adjustments that you make, maybe the gut feeling calls that you make, really pan out in such a strong way.
Oh yeah, for sure. It just made the Mousehold a lot more bringable in general. Beforehand, when it was just max HP, it really wasn't bringable to games because like I have to land. It's what, like 10% of that I would 10% to that miss chance because each hit is 1% to miss. So if I keep clicking it over and over and over again, eventually I'm gonna miss the one, right? I've seen people with my wide lens miss the first one and just get really unlucky. But I didn't get unlucky. I just had like regular luck and I didn't really miss Pop Bomb. I think I actually missed on myself in Swiss. I got like 3 hits in and then I missed. And I was like, okay. Which I'm not complaining about, right?
Yeah.
So that was the only time I missed in the entire thing.
Mm-hmm. And notably, your team does not have a ton of moves that can miss, so it's also a very consistent team for that as well. But the
only thing I probably would change going forward is probably maybe the Basque Legion. I was Mystic Water, and as I was talking to my friends afterwards and during the tournament itself, like during day 1 and day 2, they were telling me I should have been Life Orb, mostly for the last respects calc. And there was a couple of times I missed KOs. I have a really funny story. In Swiss, it was my second loss, actually, my round 2. I lost because my Basque Legion in rain didn't Oko a Talonflame with Aqua Jet. It just didn't Terra, and it just lived Aqua Jet in rain from Mystic Water Adamant. And I was so confused. I'm like, what?
Talonflame runs a lot of bulk for that kind of thing. I actually, when I was thinking about your team, I legitimately, you said I should have run Life Orb just now, and I was like, he wasn't Life Orb, and I literally just went to Top Cut Explorer to check it. Like, oh no, you were Mystic Water, because I had just assumed you were Life Orb, and I was like, oh, that's so smart because I love Basque Legion that can switch moves. Like,
yeah,
that can be so powerful.
I personally think the Life Orb / Mystic Water set is the better set. I think being able to switch moves is very, very important on Basque Legion.
Mm-hmm.
To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement, Nick? The Archrain team is a Basque Legion team first and an Arch team second.
It's so funny. I've said it so many times. It's like Basque Legion's the best mod on this team. It's so good. Like when I'm testing it on ladder and it Okos like a Terra Dragon like Golden Go, it's such a good feeling. It felt
and
so good.
That's your way around redirection, right? Like that's your Volk matchup too. So
yeah, like
so
I forgot how to pronounce her name. And I don't want to mispronounce it because I think that's offensive. But during my semifinals game, I insta-terra'd the Basque Legion and hit the Grimmsnarl. There were times in Swiss where I got that KO. So that was kind of just like an instinct kind of line. The Terra Water just wave crashed at because I was getting the KOs, but they just happened to live.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you also mentioned, you talked about this a couple times, that this is your first regional ever. Obviously, it turned out really good, but tell me a little bit about the experience as a player. Hadn't maybe attended a regional before. Did it live up to your expectations? And what were your what surprised you about going to a regional?
It's a lot different than my other event I had went to before was NAIC. I had went with a bunch of friends, and I was mostly there because I wanted to watch the Unite. I ended up buying the playing pass. I went 1-X. I played like one game and then dropped out. And then after, because I was just watching there with Unite, and nobody made day 2. We were all just spectating. When I watched all the stuff there, the Pokemon Go, TCG, Unite, and all that was just really fun as a spectating. Going to a regional was so much different because I had to like focus on playing. There was like no distractions or anything, and I just focused on playing. And it was so fun because I got to meet so many people there. The only thing I didn't like about it was the chairs. The chairs are really uncomfortable.
Yep. Oh, I feel that. Especially playing you played 16 sets.
More chairs.
Mm-hmm.
Were they?
It didn't feel like there was also too much to do. From like a spectator perspective, which I didn't like either. But I guess I was playing. I was like, this was my one where I was like, I want to focus on this. I didn't like any IC. I just wanted to spectate, right? For the most part, I just bought the playing pass because like, why not, right? I played in the side events too, so I just wanted to, just have fun there, and I wanted to actually try at Baltimore.
Yeah. I think
those chairs were. Sorry, Adi, I keep cutting you off.
No, go ahead.
The freaking chairs, because I saw someone fall through a chair in front of me.
Oh my!
In round 6 or round 5 or something. No, round 3. Round 3, the person to my left and in front of me fell through a chair, and then I just saw someone complaining about falling through. The Baltimore chairs were the worst chairs I have ever seen at a Pokemon event. Like, this was not like Adi, your usual, like, oh, the chairs kind of suck. This was the worst set of chairs that has ever been provided at a Pokemon event, in my opinion. And I've attended Pokemon events for a long time.
I was so happy to be on stream. I was like, these chairs are so comfortable.
They're so much better.
Oh, they're so much better on the stream. It's crazy.
Wow,
that is your team chair or something.
I just wanted to make it clear.
In their chair.
Oh my god, that's crazy. The regional chairs are never especially comfortable, but I did not realize it was that bad. I did not hear anyone complaining about it, but wow.
I saw a picture after. I saw some like picture on Twitter afterwards of like a bunch of like rest in peace the Baltimore chairs. There's like a bunch of broken chairs like in the corner or something. I think someone took it.
All right. Well, I mentioned this last time. There's a new regional organizer. Essentially, they're not going with some of the older ones. This is Gaming Generation, which is I think they have deep roots in the Smash community, and this is the first time organizing Pokemon events, from my understanding. And so, first time organizing an event like this. Maybe some hiccups here and there, and this seems like to be a relatively small one. But I'm hoping that can get fixed before the next time they host a regional, which I believe is Louisville. So hopefully we will not see the same chairs at Louisville. I will not be very happy if I have to deal with it too.
Usually it's the convention center's fault, right?
Yeah, I think the convention center is the one that provides the chairs. Something tells me it's not Pokemon sending chairs across the world to every regional.
If Pokemon was sending them around the world, that would make sense because they were beat up, man.
Like, for all of us who were there on day 2, and I don't know if you guys waited outside the event super early or not, but we couldn't go in because they said they like water pipe issues or something.
Yeah, something happened the first day, like the before day 1, day 0. You could sign up and get your like spectator stuff, like your your swag pickup the day before. That got delayed. I don't know exactly what the reason was, but a lot of people were waiting outside for a very long time because they were supposed to open up at like 11, and they were supposed to have the challenge at 12:30, and that all got delayed. So I don't know exactly what happened. But I guess this might just be this is Gaming Gen's first event. It just didn't go as smoothly as intended. So I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to that.
Right, and like you mentioned, some of this is probably also on the convention center as well. And so it's not. Yeah, but it's logistics are hard. Logistics are really hard, and by and large, it sounds like the event ran pretty smoothly. So actually, this is a great topic. The new system means that you only have 8 rounds of Swiss, and I think you guys were out of the venue by like 5 o'clock, right?
Oh
yeah.
And both day 1 and day 2, which is super super cool because it means you have like a whole evening. How did you guys feel about that?
It was pretty cool. I had ended up missing my flight. I had my flight scheduled for 7. I didn't think it'd run that long. That was my fault. Again, I've never been to one of these. My friends didn't tell me how long it would run. They'd be like, you'll probably be out to the event by like 4, probably 12 o'clock,
You were
right?
right if you didn't make finals,
Nobody
right?
expected me to even day 2, right? And they were like, oh yeah, you could probably book your stuff for 7. Little did I know, I didn't make it. I didn't leave that venue till like 6:30.
Hey, Nick, like I've made a few day 2s. I also tend to book my flights for 7 because you don't assume that you'll make finals and then win the event, right? So that is the only case where you need to rebook the flight. And in that case, right, you're gonna get $6,000 in a few weeks. So like it's fine, question mark.
Oh, no, it was completely fine. I actually met some really cool people at the airport. Oh, there was something I want to mention. I didn't know you couldn't wear branded shirts. There's a picture of me on stream with a Deadpool hoodie. I think they edited it out, but I had a Deadpool hoodie on. I didn't know that. And it was
No,
so funny.
you're perfectly allowed to wear them. They just typically cover them.
All my
so
friends
that's
have that screenshot of me on stream with the Deadpool hoodie.
I think that's very funny, honestly.
Yeah, it was. But we were pointed it out. We were watching, and it was like, yeah, because normally you if you wear something branded, they put like a piece of tape over it, or they make you take your hoodie off, or they'll give you a T-shirt. They'll give you the Play Pokemon T-shirt.
They made me take it off on. They gave me the black hoodie. I was wearing it while I was playing up on the stream. But when I went to take my photo, I guess they didn't catch it.
Well, that's a cool thing to have, and it's cool that you have the photo, even though I know for the official photo they edited it out. But yeah, and then I guess the one other thing I wanted to loop back around to is you mentioned that it was a very different experience for a spectator, and that's something that I've also heard. I think you got the right idea, where you got to go to NAIC, you got to go to internet as more of a spectator type role, where that there's so much stuff going on, there's so many side TVs, so many side events and stuff, and so I've always really enjoyed I've enjoyed the internet's experience even when I do poorly. And obviously I enjoy regionals as well because I have all my friends there, but regionals, I feel like they are much more focused for competitors and the focus is on playing the tournament. And then day 2, and especially Top Cut, is a lot more spectator friendly. But until that point, I think a lot of people are kind of locked in. And so that is one thing that I would like to see them try to improve, try to make regionals a little better for spectators, have more stuff to do. But yeah, that is also something that I have noticed going to multiple tournaments, is that regionals tend not to be the best spectator experience.
Yeah, it'd be cool if we still had the side TVs or something like that. I'm all for Pokemon history, and I love the fact that we can still record some of what happens in those, because some of the best games people have ever played we'll never see, which is kind of sad, even at the regional level, right? Like my set with James Evans. Come on, that would have been a cool one to watch back, because we would have the 4-time run back. Huh?
Yeah, I will say that I'm very sad that I'm not able to watch my set with Justin Tang back, because that set was down to the wire, and he played incredibly well, and I was somehow able to squeak a win out of it. So
it's honestly so rude of Justin Tang to be so exceptional at Pokemon.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, Toler, I guess it's your turn. You were talking about your set with James Evans. Tell us a little bit about your team, and tell us a little bit about your tournament experience.
Yeah, it's almost not fair for me to be here if I'm just talking about the team, because it's Yotam's baby. I don't know if people on the stream will know Yotam. Yotam is a sack of bumblebees kind of person who kind of it's just such a pleasure to be around, and a great friend, a really caring person. He was hosting me for the event, and he was the progenitor of the P2 Ursa archetype. Even in Reg F, funny story about that was that he had built the team, had passed it to a friend who was playing in Swedish locals. I believe Breda was the one he passed it to. And Breda played in a Swedish local against Nils, and then Nils was like, wow, this is a strong team. And Nils refitted it to play at a UIC and then won a UIC. So Yotam was tangentially responsible for P2 Ursa's incredible performance there. So he was like, okay, I want to play P2 Ursa at a tournament again. So he built most of this team without any of my supervision or input. The only thing I really added to it was the Flamigo, because he was we had big issues figuring out the 6 slot. We had 6 slot syndrome, and usually 6 slot syndrome is a problem with the other 5 Pokemon. But this was a special case where the 6 slot for the team was actually just a Pokemon. You always think you're going to find this situation where it's oh yeah, 6 slot, I'm going to find a magic Pokemon that does everything that we need it to do, and doesn't sack too many matchups. And in this case, it actually happened, where it was like, oh, actually, no one has considered Flamigo. If we try Flamigo here, it lets us beat Mouse Ape. It lets us, fight really well in the mirror. It lets us fight against Rain. Like tons of important matchups that Flamigo does really well. And Wide Guard gives us like this amazing situation against Golden Go, where not only are we CCing the Golden Go some portion of the time, but if you Wide Guard against Golden Go, it actually can't hit P2 or Ursa. Um, so Flamigo can be really powerful in the squad. And when we got to testing that and testing it seriously, basically we just like stopped losing on ladder. Yotam played a limitless tour, and I told him not to, but he played a limitless tour and like didn't lose, even though I told him to stop. Then a lot of people were picking up Flamigo either for playing us on ladder or having seen that limitless run. And so it really had a big presence at the tournament, like the six itself, with like a few changes from a lot of people. But I'm really happy that our version with the like normal Ursaluna and even the mental herb Amogus and all that stuff did really well. I won't say like too much about my tournament run. I was trying really hard to be chill about it because I can be super emotional about Pokemon since it's my favorite game. I love playing it. So I was trying really hard not to get too worked up about it. I played Annihilate 5 times, which was very strange because it's not a good matchup for P2 Ursa. So I had to figure that out. I lost to one of them. I played against like Mousehold, Archalodon. I had just like a weird matchup spread. The games I lost were to Dawe in day one, and then to like an Amoonguss, Volcarona, Ursula and Blood Moon team. So that was interesting. And then somehow magically made it through day 2 without too many problems. Played a lot of strong players like Chase Mateo, Calvin Nissen, and the James Evans run back in round 11, which really I think I benefited a lot from him being exhausted from having had the most insane schedule of all time. Literally like 7 people I recognized in day 1. Like he had a killer run too. And then like playing top 16, top 8, I think I just ran into decent matchups. Top 4, Paul had a lot of practice against my stuff previously because he played against Chris Hahn, who that was what I based my plans off of, was how Chris 2-0'd Paul in Swiss, but I'm not Chris, so I probably should have played Flamigo a little bit more because that was what I was stronger with. And yeah, I guess you could watch that set back. I wasn't particularly proud of the set with Paul, although I will note that Terra Normal Facade roll on the Ensign was very bad in game 1. And actually, the Terra Blast from Dragonite that took out my P2 to end game 1, which was literally the deciding factor of the game. I said on stage, I was like, oh man, I'm really surprised that KO'd me. And he was like, yeah, I was too. I thought you were like close to max defense. I'm like, I am. And I said like, oh, I think that's probably like a 3/16 roll or something like that based on the damage you were doing. And he's like, huh, interesting. So I went back and calced it, and it was exactly a 3/16 chance to KO. So I felt vindicated. And then he crushed me in game 2. I had no chance. I just didn't anticipate the Ninetales at all. But yeah, the main points of the story are like, this is Yotam's team. Flamigo is like a super cool tool. That's one of those rare instances where you actually find the Pokemon that does everything you want it to do. And I had a really weird run where I fought a lot of Mouse Ape and a lot of Ape in general, and then just like straight killers in day 2. So the tournament structure being shorter made it feel like my matchup spread got even more skewed since I got an even smaller sample. But at the end of the day, it's how you play against what you run into. So I can't really complain.
Yeah. Well, on that note, you are the the person here is the most experienced in regional top cuts, playing in regionals and stuff. So tell me about what you think of this new regional format. How did you feel about 8 rounds day 1 and the bigger top cuts, smaller day 2 Swiss?
I like the format for the most part. I liked that it was done more quickly in day 1. I think the only thing that so I am a fan of the fact that your day 2 rounds are shorter, but only because I suck at day 2. So I would always lose a lot in day 2s. I'm just bad against people better than me, I guess. I liked that it was shorter. I liked that it was done sooner. I liked that it gave them some room to stream some Top Cut games. I think the asymmetrical Top Cut situation, while I think is absolutely the right call competitively, and I wouldn't change for a second, it led to some awkward waiting time since I was in this position where I was the lowest rated of the people who got buys. So I took a buy in a top 16, but still had to play someone else who got a buy right away, which was my match against Riley. And it was really weird to have that like hour and a half between my match against Riley and my match against Dongxi. So I guess like the only thing I'll say about the format is that it can create some weird situations, and you don't sample as many matchups or as much of the field. as you would in the previous format. I don't know if that's better or worse. Tournaments are always about like how you do against what you pull, not necessarily about like how you would have done against the imaginary statistical average of the field.
Mhm.
Although that's what you prep for. So I don't know. I think it was a fine format. I think it was quick. I think it's appropriate for regionals. I would like for an international championship or something like that, although I know this isn't what's happening, to have a format that samples a little bit more of the field and tests players' endurance a little bit more, because I think like part of the skill of being a competitive Pokemon player is handling the tournament days. Um, and and also if the tournament day is longer, that means that you are challenged in more situations. So I don't think it's a bad thing to have more matches, but otherwise, like I thought this format was great and really appropriate for a regional.
Interesting. Okay. I've generally been opposed to this format just because I thought that the 14 rounds was like not really a problem for us. And 5 rounds of day 2, I never really had a problem with it. I felt like, especially if you get like top 16, top 32, having more rounds to prove that to prove your record generally was cool, instead of having to sort of cut to a
See,
single elim, where single elim decides so much.
I have never agreed with this argument, and that's because like those late rounds of Swiss are just as deciding as single elim would be a lot of the time,
Mhm.
unless you were already X1, in which case you've pulled some kind of good variance or made a really good call to start with. I don't see a big difference between more rounds of single elim and more rounds of effectively single elim in Swiss. And
Sure.
maybe like Rajan is going to come on and be like, you're an effing idiot, like you don't know anything about Swiss. But like at the end of the day, right? You take 2 losses and that's it,
Mhm.
and then you're limited if you take more. That said, my ideal setup was the previous structure, but with asymmetrical cut.
Sure.
Because I felt it was ridiculous that you could go X3 and not cut or even not get money.
Yeah.
That was insulting to me for a lot of players that were really strong and hadn't pulled schedules where their opponents ended up doing well later, or had lost early to some kind of luck. And it's like your early losses weighted way too much in that kind of situation. And I don't like situations where cuts are decided by tiebreakers
Mhm.
so like that much. But I don't like, especially if you have ended up X2. Like I see the point if you go X1, but at the end of the day, if you win X1, it's as if you had a good, top cut run or something like that in a lot of other formats. So I don't think as long as we're doing asymmetrical cut, right, which I think is the most fair thing to do.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think that like more Swiss rounds is any better than more top cut rounds, and that's just, I guess that's a personal take, but
No, that's fair.
yeah.
For me, the part that I feel is a little unfair is that you look at Wolf, Justin Tang, and Ethan, who all went 11-1 in Swiss, or X1 in
Sure.
Swiss, and then only got top 16. Didn't get that huge increase in championship points that gets to top 8, where they probably would have cut the regional if it had a few extra rounds of Swiss. And
Yeah, but at the
that's
end
the
of the day,
one.
right? Like they win X1 because, well, Wolf is goaded, but they win X1 because they were able to ride on sampling the top end of the field,
That's true.
which those players are building for the top end of the field rather than the middle of the field.
Mhm.
So if they get punished for fighting the middle of the field after having coasted from hitting the top end of the field repeatedly, then that's just a question of like how strong were you into the field on average.
Mhm.
So like if they're really deserving of the X1 or whatever, then like and they should beat everyone, then why is it a problem for them to play next to? Like
Yeah.
yeah.
No, absolutely. And that's true. And I think that, at the end of the day, that you're playing in a tournament to win the tournament, and you're playing in the tournament to decide the winner. And if you want to win the tournament, you got to be who's in front of you, right? And I think
Mhm.
in terms of deciding who actually wins, it's pretty much the same, right? You still got to win the rounds that matter. But yeah, just in terms of the way that prizing pans out for top 8, top 16, top
For sure.
32, that's the part where I feel like it's a little more, less fair. But I think we're kind
I
of splitting hairs
definitely
at that
feel for
point.
them too.
Um,
Because getting ninth through 16th like hurts for this format because of the huge CP drop.
mhm.
That was definitely in my mind when I paired into Riley. Is like, oh god, so I'm gonna lose to Riley, and then
Mhm. And then the top 32 play-in round as well, where that decides whether you get prize money or
yeah,
not, is also kind of
that matters a
brutal.
lot.
So
Mhm.
it is what it is. But I just wanted to hear your perspective, because you've been to a lot of events, and you've top cut a lot of events. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think the takeaway for me is like a lot of the formats are very close to each other in terms of outcome.
mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then I guess I didn't have any other questions. I guess if so, in that case, I guess we could talk about Lorenzo. You got top 8 with Dendozo, and you were just telling us that you had not used Dendozo before this. This was your first time bringing Dondozo to a regional. Tell us about why you brought Dondozo and your team, and tell us a little bit about your tournament experience.
Okay, well, this story goes back pretty far because I always, as soon as Annihilate got coaching, I always figured in a format without Urshifu that the concept of Annihilate but Dondozo lead when Annihilate has coaching is like fundamentally broken. It is a lead that is basically impossible to cover for everything as long as you don't have a mon that crits through boosts and hits through protect, which is Urshifu. So once that's gone, that like I can press U-turn, I can press coaching, and I can press final gambit. I can protect with Dozo, or I could just hard swap into the Giri mode. And covering for all that is it. I mean, it's just impossible. It's basically just making a call and hoping you pick right. Uh, and then if you watch the stream, you'll see that Offamezi also ran this team. Me, him, and 3 others were in a. We all built this team together. Shout out to Blake, Yanchak, and Joe Kwan, who were the other 3 who ran the team at Baltimore. So basically, the story goes, Blake showed me a team with coaching Annihilate and Dragapult, essentially the idea being that Banded Dragapult's very strong. If you Annihilate with Scarf is faster than Dragapult, you can coach it. And then Dragapult, who is very strong, is already at +1. You can't intimidate either, or else you're giving Annihilate a boost. It was fairly strong, but it was a little bit too weak to Sucker Punch. I didn't particularly like it, and we eventually changed off of it to Dragonite. But I recommended that we switch to Dondozo, because that got me thinking about my old concept. And I'll tell you, Blake is one of the biggest Dondozo haters I've ever seen. He hates the Mon, but he was willing to run it because he saw the vision. And throughout testing, yeah, the team, especially in Best of 1, the close team sheet, it is very, very, very good. But even in Best of 3, hopefully I've proven that Annihilate Dondozo is like a very strong for once when Annihilate has coaching and Final Gambit and U-turn. And yeah, practice went well. This is also the first time that I've ever really prepped, like, basically not on the ladder at all. Like, I did a little bit of laddering early on, but once I figured out, okay, I know this team is good. I kind of know what I'm doing into most of the matchups. We did internal testing against the teams that were popping up in either Limitless tours or VR tours, but not much on the Showdown ladder, and this is the first time that I've ever done this. It kind of worked out, but not at the beginning, because I started this tournament 0-2, which is kind of crazy. And shout out to the people that beat me, because they played incredibly well, but maybe it was just that I just wasn't in the right headspace at the beginning of the tournament or whatever, but I just did not have a good start. And then, well, if you go 0-2, the only way to make it to day 2 is to win every single game, and then the only way to make it to top cut is to win every single game after that. And that is what happened, but honestly, I think one of the big boosts to my morale was that seeing Afamezi go on stream and win fairly easily with the team concept did like reignite the spark of how I should be playing this. And yeah, like it. One of my favorite things about the team is that despite being a Dondozo, generally Dondozo is like known for being like this cheesy strategy because like, oh, you can lead it with Glamora and then Dondozo can sit there and stall with leftovers. And now that this hasn't really been the case in Regulation F, where most of the time Dondozo is found on hyper offense team. And in fact, that is the team that you would probably most recognize, the one with Golden Go, Palmot, Talonflame, and Glamora, or sometimes Dragonite on the team. But and I believe, yeah, it was Chuppa and a few others ran that and made it to day 2. That was the standard Dondozo at the time. But like the Annihilate gave the core, like it made it play incredibly different. but also let me be like incredibly aggressive and win games very quickly if I got like the first turn right. Because a lot of people will just double protect, expecting me to press Final Gambit, and then I just press Coaching, and the game kind of ends on the spot. It's very interesting, the Annihilate Dondozo lead.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that lead messed me up so hard, man. I didn't know how to play into it. I knew how to play into Dozo Giri. I had like 6 Dozo Giris, which is day 1, day 2. I played like every single Dozo Giri in the tournament. I swear to God. And then I came across this Annihilate Dondozo, and I'm like, I don't know how to play this.
Wait, you're saying you brought Fierce Fagamungus and actually got rewarded?
Yeah,
I have never seen it happen.
that's awesome. Crazy. Like a lot of people that I talked to ran into 0 Dondozos, even the ones that made it to day 2.
I ran into none aside from a solo.
I can check my schedule again. I know I played. I think my winning into top 16 was
Holy cow!
No, it was a Don. I played a fat Don. Dondozo. It was so fat it undersped my Archaludon, which I thought was impossible. It had to be like minus speed or not like have any speed.
Dondozo isn't fast naturally, right? So if you don't run any speed investment, it gets if you don't run any speed investment, it gets like to like 100, 105 or something. Like
no, it should be 110 with the boost as long as you're not running a boosting nature. Yeah, no, he's right.
That was weird. That was that one, and into that I played another rain Dondozo right beforehand, and that was really weird too.
Yeah.
And then I played Cheppa on day 2.
Oh my god.
Yep.
You pulled so many Dozo.
I played like every Dozo, and then
I'm so jealous.
I'm sitting here like, oh, I got another Dozo matchup. This is gonna be easy. I see Annihilate Dondozo, and I'm like, I don't know how to play this.
Yeah. It's not simple. You like honestly. I played a lot against a lot of Arch-Terrain, and I knew the 4 that were going to be brought to the game were your Basculegion, your Archaludon, your Pelipper, and your Amoonguss. I knew for a fact Incineroar and Mousewood were never touching this matchup. But it is a very I don't know how to really explain this, but it feels like a awkward matchup for both of us.
It is.
You have a one of the few mons, Basculegion, which outspeeds Annihilate and can just OHKO it. So, I have to play around that. So that is why game 1 I just kind of hard swapped.
No, you made the right call. I thought you'd be greedy, and you might just try to U-turn there or something. Not thinking I would hit your, I'd make the call and hit hit the Dondozo, right? That's why I went for it game 1, even though it looked kind of silly.
Well, I mean, but again, if I just protect and coaching, that is the right play. That's what I mean about the whole Annihilate Dondozo lead. It's very hard to cover for everything.
Right.
So, I mean, you played absolutely excellent during that set. Let me just say, because most of the time in my practice, people just I'm gonna just protect and see what happens. Or
I panicked so hard game 1, man. I look back at that game 1 and I'm like, I'm panicking so hard right now. I'm letting all my guys take so much chip. I'm sitting here. I'm letting you get all these order up boosts. I'm like, what am I doing, dude? What am I doing? Honestly, out of all my sets, your game was the one that still terrified me the most. That was the closest game for me, straight up. That game.
It came down to your Dozo living on or not your Dozo, your Archaludon living 6 HP, right? Something like that. It was very tight margins.
Yeah. On top
I
of
still think Sucker was a roll. It looked like it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Also, my friends told me to not look up the calc on Muddy Water and Pelipper in Game 3. I'm going to trust them for my own mental health sake. Apparently, it's my favorite, but it's okay. I probably should have pressed Draco that turn. I definitely should have pressed Draco that turn, but it's okay.
Okay, I gotta get a little lucky. You know what I mean?
It's all good. On top of that, during our set, I got to pull off one of my favorite maneuvers with the team. U-turn wave crash into Pelipper game 2. Which
that fucking smoked me. That was so
yeah,
good.
so
good.
A lot of people do not know about that line, and honestly, I'm gonna be real. I haven't I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen just a faster U-turner than Dondozo. Just U-turn out into Geary and have Dozo just hit the slot hot as hard as possible.
Mhm.
Like I don't think I've ever seen someone do that on on a Dozo team. But I mean, the concept seems fairly simple. But pop the sash, swap and Geary, hit the slot, it dies.
Right.
So my friends were popping off in the crowd. I could hear it.
Well, I could hear them too. I could hear them too.
But because that was a fairly rehearsed line into Sir and Mon's Pelipper being one of them, because you have to be a pretty bulky Pelipper to live that because of the
Yeah, you
rain.
conditioned me game 2 to click for game 3 to click for tech. I was like, I'm not falling for it again.
Yeah.
But
Those
Oh,
kinds of
man.
teams.
the team was a lot of fun, which is crazy because if you would ask me if I would ever play Dozo before Reg H, I would say no because I just don't like generally how Dozo plays. But this team was like a lot of fun to play.
It looked fun.
It
Very
looks
fun,
it looks
actually.
very cool. You know me, I love my Scarf Annihilates. But yeah, no, it's a super cool take on it, and I do think that you're right. It increased a lot of uncertainty, and I think we saw maybe fast Miascarada pivoting with Dozo back in Series A, but since then it hasn't really been as much of a thing. So it's cool to see you take advantage of that too. But
Yeah. And also, I didn't even mention the Dragonite. The Dragonite was like the MVP of the tournament, which is crazy. Because I'm pretty sure out of all the rounds that I played, there was one player that did not have one of Clear Smog or Haze. Uh, and that round I actually lost to, which is kind of funny. But everybody else had like they were ready to deal with Dondozo. So Dragonite had to put in like a lot of work. Because Dragonite was there to deal with like the balance cores that that deal with Dondozo, for example, like Primarina Rillaboom, like the fake out getting a fake out Mon in and pressing Haze to deal with Dondozo's boost. But Dragonite generally rips those teams apart, especially when you can get a coaching boost onto it or two. Uh, so yeah, Dragonite came in absolutely clutch.
Dragonite's really cool. It wasn't on my radar at all before this. Like, I saw a couple of them, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I wonder what they do. And I saw them all popping off.
yep, yeah, it was really everywhere. It was one of the big overachievers. Of course, you got to see it in finals as well. But yeah, let's talk about some of the other teams. Of course, there were a whole lot of players that did really well, and a whole lot of like teams that are relatively new. Maybe not the craziest teams out there, but like actually there were some of the craziest teams out there too. And Toler, I know you gotta head out soon, so I'm gonna let you start. Pick a Pokemon or pick a team that you want to talk about that did well at this tournament.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about Chris Hansen. No, for those, yeah, explaining the joke that that team is the same sex as mine. Um, so there are a few here that are cool. I mean, I assume y'all will highlight Paul and Dawei's teams.
Mhm.
Jungshi's team is not super exciting because it's kind of Marco Fiora's team, but Jungshi was the one that was exciting about that team. Obviously, Wolf is getting all kinds of notoriety for bringing Toad Scroll. Ethan Matos I played, and they had some insanely cool sets. But I think the one that I want to highlight is Z's team, actually. This Vivillon Garchomp team. If people even recall that it was there, which they should because it's sick. Garchomp, I think, is was like sleeper really strong in this tournament, mostly because ground coverage is so good when everything is steel type. And the way that Vivillon enables Garchomp is just so cool. And I think Z is such a phenomenal player that they really made it shine. This like not only are you like threatening Sleep Powder, right? It's really fast. Base 89 speed Sleep Powder, so faster than everything but like Flamigo and Annihilate and faster. Which is really funny, base 90s. So not only are you threatening Sleep Powder and everything, but both Garchomp and Vivillon encourage the opponent to Terra Grass, Terra Grass being one of the most common Terras in the format. And then Vivillon follows up with the alley-oop of nailing you with Hurricane out of the rain. You get slammed by Special Hurricane from Vivillon, which has a sash, so it can run max special attack. Which actually, I mean, it is no joke. It's doing like 70% to Grass Archelodon, which is sometimes all you need to do. So like that combination of Vivillon Garchomp was on my radar. I know it was on Chris Hahn's radar. He couldn't find a version of the team that worked. So I wanted to like point out like also the fighting P2 once again to beat Gambits. Gambit is a big enough deal in this format that fighting P2 is actually really good since you can take the hits. Um, and then Preem is a natural answer to help with Dozo. You have Incin helping cycle and helping support the setup Dango that's chilling in the back. Like there are a lot of really smart options on this team, and Z's a phenomenal builder and player. So I think there's a lot to like here as far as like a way to make Garchomp work. I'm excited to see, beyond the Vivillon, what people do to make Garchomp pop off in this format because man, that ground coverage is so powerful.
Yeah. And I mean, the ground flying pin especially is just so powerful this format. We saw Paul.
Yeah.
I think every time Paul was on stream, he was trying to set up the Garchomp next to the
Garchomp
Dragonite
Dragonite.
pin.
Yeah.
And so this is a really cool take on it. I like this a lot. And Vivillon's a Pokemon. People didn't see. I think there were 2 or 3 people who used Vivillon in the entire tournament when I checked. But it's got a lot of tools because not only does it have Compound Ice, Sleep Powder, and Hurricane, but it's also got Friend Guard if you want to go that route, and it's also got Pollen Puff and Tailwind and Rage Powder. We see Rage Powder on this set, but like it's got a whole toolkit. If you're looking for a Mon to build around the GC, this might be it because it's unpredictable.
Yeah. Classic example of a Pokemon that has a moveset and ability options that really set it apart from its stats, which are just god awful. The speed is the most important thing about Vivillon, the speed and the special attack, and everything else you kind of just pretend isn't there. It was definitely on my radar before the event. Like I was worried about the Vivillon matchup, but I know it wasn't on a lot of people, so definitely a cool one.
That Vivillon Garchomp line was so impossible for my team to beat. I ran into one on day 1 and I folded to it. But I found my out to it.
Jeremy?
Unfortunately, because my Basque Legion wasn't Life Orb, I don't get that KO. So the Vivillon lived the Aqua Jet after I hit it once, right?
Oh
it
wow!
lived the Aqua Jet because I wasn't Life Orb, and I'm just like, man, come on, dude.
Okay, Vivillon's base stats are actually goaded. I lied. I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game, Vivillon.
I wasn't familiar with its game either. Apparently, it just lives Aqua Jet in the rain. Everything lives now. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. I always think of it like it's a Smeargle, but it's actually better than that. So.
And then the other thing I noticed.
Team folks put into mind though, the Vivillon Garchomp lines.
Yeah. Well, especially the Primarina there be helping to deal with Dozo. I mean, we saw some Primarinas get cooked by +1 Terra Blast by Dragonite, but I think that the cool thing that I noticed was that we saw Citrus Berry on Z's team, which is interesting because Citrus Berry was not the most common item on the tournament for Primarina. In fact, it was the 3rd most common item. Except if you go to just the teams that went from top 56 to day 2, Citrus Berry all of a sudden becomes the most common item, which just showed that people maybe were not using this Pokemon correctly. It maybe underperformed a little bit day 1 to day 2. But the players who figured out that Citrus Berry was really strong generally did quite well.
Yeah, and there's a specific reason that Citrus Berry is so good, right? Like if Primarina is going to be your Dozo answer, then you need to be able to switch it in on Earthquake or Wave Crash, and then take another one before you haze. And if you don't have a Citrus Berry, the amount of physical defense investment you need to do that is astronomical. But with a Citrus Berry, you could do something kind of minimal, like hit your Grassy Terrain number, and then it's like some small amount of defense that you need to add. So Citrus Berry, like, not only makes you generally good because you take a lot of hits because you're slow, but it also means that Primarina actually gets to function as a true Dozo answer in that it can come in. They can't order it up, so you can protect, switch it in. They can't get a boost. You take the hit, you take another hit, you always get the haze. So it's actually like a reliable Dozo answer, which is hard, unless they have coaching, in which case Citrus Berry.
Well, I will say that the Citrus Berry sets were definitely the most awkward to deal with. Because generally I can just hit U-turn wave crash and it dies. But
Not
then
sure in this case, yeah.
Not quite in this case. And of course, leaving Annihilate on the field when there's a fairy type on the field isn't always the most optimal thing you want to do. So it depends on if they lead from Marina, if they're swapping it in. But I will say the Citrus Berry set was the most difficult for me to deal with. And generally, I just relied on Dragonite to just, hey, Terra Blast, go.
Fair. Yeah, it's very scary if you're Z to be bringing the Dango to try to deal with the D-Knight when there's a Gambit and a Dozo.
Yes,
the board.
the picks were very intentional. For the other slots that were in Dozo, it's just like, hey, I have like these mons are just very good into the stuff that generally beats Dozo, and there's a lot of stuff that is anti-Dozo right now, like most of the rounds that I ran into were pretty well set up to deal with a standard Dozo team. And this is where, hey, Dragon Knight and King Gambit can kind of just run wild on these teams if they bring their Dozo answers.
Mm-hmm. All right. And so I guess with that, I'm going to let Nick, I'm going to let you pick a team or a Pokemon that you want to highlight and talk about.
Yeah, I think Alex's team is crazy. That Volbeat a Spotter team, that's a crazy team.
Oh, yeah. We got to see this one on stream too. Didn't nearly look as good playing against were they those to Dawe, I think, in Top Cut. But yeah. Yeah, talk about it. What do you think about it?
I just think the picks of Volbeat and the Spotter are fascinating. Like the dual weather, you have the Rain Dance for Archaudon and Prim in a sense. And then the Prim's also Weather Ball. So like even if it clicks Sunny Day, Prim still has a move to click in Sun, right? You have the Sun boosted Weather Ball and stuff. Like I think that team's like pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the Spotter I thought was a really interesting choice. I had seen there's a team that day 2'd. I forget who had it, but there was this Haze Imprisoned Hypno, which was like the same. It's of the same logic basically, like for other size teams.
Oh yeah,
and that one was really cool to see. Like I like seeing like these niche mons get the pop off.
Yeah, that's like, my friend Noah. Awesome. He said he brought it to one game or one match all weekend.
Ah, that sucks.
Well, how many Dozo did he play? That's the real question.
Yeah, that's the real question. Yeah,
how much Dozo? How much Side Spam?
He said the match that he brought the Hypno in, it did its job. So that's the important part.
I must have absorbed all the Dozo then. Because I swear I played.
You have had the most Dozo of anyone I've talked to. I thought I would have had the most 8, but that wasn't the case. So.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It looks like the guy is meant to beat Side Spam and Dozo, and he looks like he queued into 0 Side Spam and 1 Dozo. So I'm glad I'm glad it's pulled its weight.
Was Side Spam popular at Baltimore? I didn't see that much Side Spam.
I ran into it once, but that was.
I ran into it a few times. I want to say.
There were.
I know it was only once. Yeah.
There were
one of my friends ran Side Spam.
So
yeah, there were a few. The Delphox version was converted a lot better than the HRTR versions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, we saw the Spot 13, which is kind of a Side Spam team. But yeah, other than that, I think it was the Delphox ones. But as far as underachievers go, I think that Side Spam was one of the biggest threats in the format that really did not convert nearly as well as I think people expected it to. Maybe hated out of the format, maybe just underachieved. I expected to see more of it, and there were a number of them in day 2, but I think there was only 1 or 2 in Top Cut. But yeah, all right. So Alex's team, super cool. A lot of cool choices, right? We see the Specs Primarina to try to abuse Rain, a very different way of abusing it. We see the Archaludon with Power Herb, which is something that we've seen around, but again, doesn't lock you in. And then Aura Sphere is a really cool choice on it as well. I'm curious about what that's for, but I guess if you're Side Spam, you really need the ways to hit dark types, right? So anything goes there. And then similarly, I really like the charcoal type lotion. We normally see it choiced, and I think it does need the damage boost, but then if you have an Espathra, you do kind of have the way to boost its damage, and what you really need is a way to protect itself, which is, I mean, it's so hard to position if you can't protect itself, but now with DD to redirect, to stop psychic terrain, to stop priority moves rather with psychic terrain, and to have protect to position your Espathra, maybe your Volbeat in at the right time. I think this is also a really this is the set, I think, out of all these Pokemon, I think this is the set that maybe has the most staying power on other teams and as the format develops.
Yeah, I think one cool thing about Alex's run was that they ran into Z round 1, and I was in a position to see Z talking about it earlier, and they were like, "Yeah, I saw Volbeat as Pother on the other side on my opponent's sheet, and I thought it was going to be a free round, but then it was like the hardest round I played all day." Like, yeah, I bet it was. Huh? Oh my gosh, so scary.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, they got the buy round too. That's pretty funny too. So yeah, I guess with that, we can ask Lorenzo. Your turn. Do you have a team that you want to talk about, or a Pokemon that you want to talk about at this tournament?
I actually do have a team I want to talk about because this team did not make Top Cut, but Adrian Hurley's Side Spam Sneasler Delphox Murkrow Dozo team. I looked at that team sheet and I was like, this is like the worst possible matchup for me, isn't it? This is anti-Dozo, a Dozo team that's also anti-Dozo because it has Haze Murkrow, and it's size spam, but it has a fighting type and 2 Terra fighting Terra Plasmon, so I can't just lead King Gambit or else I
It was so
die.
cool. I played that team. That was the first team I played. That was my round 1 opponent.
I was like, how do I get through this? This seems like a team Taylor built for me to beat me.
Yeah.
I did figure it out, but like, oh my, like the turning over that team sheet and seeing this was like, oh my, how what do I do against this?
I want to highlight because Adrian's always an interesting builder. Like, his choice to do the safety goggle steal Dozo, like throwback to Reg A when people were doing this kind of thing to just shut down opposing Amoonguss. Like, no, your Amoonguss is not a Dozo answer. And then Oblivious too to stop Intimidate. Like, really trying hard to prevent any sort of Dozo counterplay whenever he intended to go the Dozo mode, and then with the Murkrow Delphox in DD mode to fight opposing Dozo. That feels really scary, just as you were saying, Lorenzo.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah, but like it just felt like this team had like basically everything it needed to stop me from just blowing through it. I was like, oh my.
yeah,
Because the nice thing about running Oblivious Dozo with Murkrow is you don't have to feed the Dozo mirror because you have Murkrow. So now, if I remember correctly about the set, he never actually brought the Dozo mode because I had 2 unaware mons. Like I was fairly decent at dealing with Dozo teams myself, but yeah, like it just that was definitely the biggest like jump scare of the tournament because I just looked over at it. I was like, oh my. Oh.
I think my take on Dozo, I guess in general, I was talking to someone about this earlier today, that it's kind of like it's like the best anti-metamon because you can build a Dozo team that really beats like almost anything, but also if you look at any given Dozo team, there's definitely like it's not hard to build a team to beat any given Dozo team. And so like you did, where I think the people who when I was looking at this tournament and I was thinking about how would I beat Dozo, I was looking at the team that Agata used to get second place at the Victory Road Tour last week. And that is, of course, Talonflame, Goldengo, Dragonite. It's a very different looking Dozo team. The counterplay to that team is so different than the counterplay to your team, Lorenzo, and the counterplay to Adrian's team, right? And so, and then now moving forward, maybe as people prepare their Dozo matchups for Louisville, maybe they're trying to beat your team. And then all of a sudden, a team that looks more like Agati's or a team that looks more like this is going to pop up and have all the requisite counterplay to your counterplay. Like again, you see the safety goggle steal Dozo is like, yeah, I will not lose to Amoonguss. Amoonguss is not going to beat me, right? So that's sort of it's always a really interesting dynamic where I feel like Dozo teams are always some of the most creative because they always have to keep changing, or else it's easy for the meta to catch up to them.
It's true.
All right. And so I guess with that, we should probably talk about some of the teams that that were at the top. And so I think Paul Chua's team, who got second place, is the other one that we really got to talk about because this is also a team that, again, it's a bunch of standard mons, but except for maybe the Ninetales, and even that isn't that unusual. But it uses them in such different ways, and it is not like a combination of Pokemon that I had really seen before. But I think he also, my take on it was that he figured out that the Dragonite Garchomp pin is one of the strongest things you can be doing in this format.
Flying ground.
Yeah.
Flying
Everything
ground,
wants to
let's
share
go.
grass. And low kick is so good on that D-Knight, man. It's so scary.
And then I thought the Ninetales was super cool. I called in the last top takes. I said Ninetales was. I said that I think Boring Bounce is going to win the tournament. I was wrong about that, but I also said Ninetales was my sleeper pick for the tournament, and I'm glad I hit that one right. Even though for all the wrong reasons, I said it was the best screen setter in the format. Guess not.
Yeah.
But
look at the open sheet of ball. Wait, where's Aurora Veil? Like, I think I played game 1 in the back of my head thinking, oh, he has Aurora Veil, and then I was like, what? No, like.
Also, I mean, but this Ninetales set, I mean, watching game 2 against you, Toler, it was incredible how he positioned it. It just he locked you out of the game so effectively.
Yeah, I thought that like that whole game, like it was so stupid, right? Because that whole game was decided by the fact that he chose to switch into Amoonguss to eat the spore and brought it into the right slot. Like he could have decided to take out Amoonguss with either Mon and eat a spore on one of them, and like it would have been kind of an even game. And then like it's like the game was decided on the spore turn where he KO'd my Amoonguss for free and got the reposition.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just watched me lose to Encore very slowly. And I was just sitting there like, man, this Ninetales looks so sick right now. And it's such a powerful tool to have when you've got your opponent down to fewer pieces, right? So he was really prioritizing getting rid of my pieces so that like the Ninetales would pop off, and I wasn't ready for it at all.
I did really appreciate that you kept clicking the moves that you couldn't click in finals. I think I saw you smile at the camera.
Yeah. I thought it was funny. Like I know I've lost this game, but I guess I should wait and see if he misplays a little bit. So whatever.
It was fun. It was fun. Yeah, Team Rocket Elite also said the same thing. Yep. It's yeah, no, that was a lot of fun to see, and I think that this team is really cool. It's not something that I had on my radar at all, but I think it's something that we're going to see going forward. People trying to take advantage, like you said, with Z also taking advantage of a very similar pin. With not quite the same team, but a lot of the same pieces. And then this Dragonite Garchomp combo looked so potent. Low kick on Dragonite, like you mentioned. Maybe you should have clicked it a little more often, but yeah, it's it was really potent throughout the tournament.
Well, there's a reason Nick is here, right? No, Nick played super well, so definitely credit to you.
Yeah, and Nick,
I think Arch was living everything anyway.
Nick, you had a chance to play against it, of course. What were your thoughts on the team?
That Ninetales was scary as hell. I brought Rain to see how bad it was. I thought maybe he might sack it early by some off chance and mistake, and then maybe I could overtake the game with Pelipper Arch, because Pelipper Arch without the Ninetales looked really good. So I was able to get Ninetales out of the way, but he the way he was playing it, he just kept it so safe out. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna bench Rain and I'm gonna bring my other 3 guys. And then that's how that happened.
Yeah, actually, I have a question about finals, because to me it seemed like you were really respecting the Incineroar switching or something like that game 2, and then game 3 you just said, nah, he's not doing it. He hasn't brought it all the entire set. He's just gonna population bomb the Dragonite. Where on the other hand, it almost felt like Paul anticipated an adjustment back to Rain. Where I feel like if he had dropped Ninetales into that mode that you had ended up bringing in game 2 and won with game 3, he would have had a lot better shot. Was that how you saw the finals?
Can you elaborate a bit more?
Yeah, I guess to me, having watched the set and had thought about the set a little bit afterwards, it almost felt like the Ninetales was a liability against the Arc Mousehold mode, but was really good into the Rain mode, whereas the Incineroar would have been a lot better into the mode that you ended up bringing game 2 and 3. And so it almost felt like it was a little bit of lead mind games there.
I don't think that's necessarily true, because after game 2, I self-hit my Archelon, right? Mm-hmm. If he benches Ninetales game 2, how does he break that, right? Mm-hmm. Because if he benches Ninetales, how is he breaking it? I click Terra Grass. If Amoonguss dies, he has nothing for it. But if he has Ninetales, then he can at least Blizzard it, right? Which would stop me from Terra Grassing, meaning he can put it to sleep, right? Mm-hmm. If he brings Instant doesn't do anything into that. It doesn't really help. You still have to bring Ninetales.
Yeah. If anything, Instant's lowering the self damage you take from population bomb.
Right. I think the fundamental thing to look at when looking at this matchup is Paul has built a team that's very Riley, Reggie coded, which is 4 physical attackers and an Amoonguss. Which the only note I had from finals as far as critique or things I would change would be man, I wonder why Nick didn't bring Arch right away, because or bring the setup Arch mode right away, because Paul did not. It looked like Paul was just
I played game 1 mega greedy. The thing I should have done game 1, there was the turn I switched in Instant and got the Gambit, the +2. He was on his second turn asleep. His Dragonite was at -2. On that turn, I should have Rage Powder Body Press. Objectively, that was the correct play. I was playing for him to sleep one more turn. Had I not swapped in my Instant and clicked Rage Powder, I think I would have won that game. Now that's just theory modding and speculation based on what I had saw. I don't know how he would have broken Arch with Ninetales or D-Knight or whatever his last was in the back. I assume it's Amoonguss. But even then, I still had my Instant at 50 with a -3 Dragonite on the field, right? So even then, I felt
I thought your matchup was awesome.
Even then, I think that had I not done that silly mistake of switching an Instant, and respecting the turn to sleep turns, I think the game could have been a lot cleaner. Because I switched it in, my Arch took all this unnecessary damage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. The only other thing I even want to say about Paul's team, right, is this is a really, really good example for anyone who's trying to learn about building of how to fit offensive coverage on your team, right? Like this is built around ground coverage. So you have not only, your base ground attacker in Garchomp, but you also have supplemental flying coverage in D-Knight, which ends up getting to show up a lot because people bring their ground resist, and supplemental ice coverage in Ninetales, which both go really well with ground coverage. And then you have the double low kick, which like fighting coverage is at a premium in this format, and a lot of the mons you want to use fighting coverage into are kind of weak to low kick, although Arch is lighter than you would expect it to be, for example. Like this is a great example of how to build your offensive core so that you have really good complementary coverage on all of your Pokemon.
And
It's incredibly smart. I think, especially when you look at Ninetales special attack stat, it seems a little laughable to use it as an offensive mon.
Effective.
But if it's super effective, if it's be able to use its high base power Blizzard, that doesn't matter. It's even Terra Ice for good measure. So, no, incredibly. And Paul's such a good builder. I've always respected him.
You reminded me of this classic article from, when was this? 2015? Bad Intent, or the founder of Hyper Offense, where he wrote about, how to create pins. And you use the same example where Garchomp's Earthquake, and then it's a strong spread move plus a nuke move that can hit really hard. Garchomp's Earthquake plus something that stops your opponent from switching their flying types, their grass types, is just the classic example of that. And so, I mean, yeah, this is just exactly what you said. This is just a clinic in how to build offensive coverage and how offensive teams and how to create pins, essentially, because that's what he just did really effectively.
Constantly. Yeah, I completely fell into it turn 2 of game 1 against them. So, yeah, all credit.
Yeah, Toler, if you got a drop, appreciate you sticking around for as long as you have.
Yeah, I should.
But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for letting me come on and talk. And Nick, wonderful to meet you. Lorenzo, always a pleasure to talk to you, especially after I Ivy Cudgel crit you at Charlotte to end up getting top 8. It's crazy how much.
No, I mean, dude, you deserve that top 8. Don't you worry. My team was crazy.
It was crazy. Anyway, peace everyone, and
Yeah.
I hope to catch the rest of the discussion
See you,
later.
man.
Yeah, have a good one.
See ya.
And if you are like Toler and you can't stick around for the entire time, well, let me tell you, you can watch the entire thing on YouTube tomorrow morning. Just like Toler will be, I hope. And we had a question in chat that I wanted to address because someone said I might have missed it, but did Sneasler underperform? It was on the top used mons, but it didn't do better than 15th. And that's a great question because I saw 45 Mice, my good friend Justin, post about this, and I responded where he said, yeah, it's on Fraud Watch. And I said, nah, I don't know about that because, again, I mentioned this earlier. There's a lot of single elim Pokemon where sets are decided by one game, or a lot of placements are decided by one set. And I prefer to look at sort of aggregated stats. And we actually see that there were, I think, 3 in top 16 and 5 in top cut overall, which when you look at it that way, that's actually a pretty accurate representation of where it is in the metagame, where about 20% usage, 25% usage. And that is a lot closer to what we saw overall as compared to the 0 in top 8. Some of that is just variance in terms of what teams made it and what teams didn't. And so that's kind of my take on it. But what are your thoughts on Sneasler and his place in the format?
I think Sneasler's a win con. Yeah, that is honestly, it's a win con. If you every time the guy get hit by a Dark Claw, I get slept every single time, and it's just so fast and so good, man. Like I don't know, poison fighting coverage, and the fact that you have to see Pokemon like Prim have to run Terra Poison because of how common Sneasler is. It's so good, and then the double back to that. That's what makes ground coverage so good. Because like if you run Sneasler and maybe you have like Garchomp on your team, what are they supposed to do about that, right? Mm-hmm. Like I Terra Poison not to lose to Sneasler, then I get like smacked by Earthquake. Like what am I supposed to do after that, right?
Yeah, like I think saying Sneasler, like the thing is, Sneasler was most found on that core of like Rillaboom plus Primarina plus Electabuzz plus King Gambit, and well, another Pokemon that did not make top 8 is Rillaboom. So I think that's just kind of how the archetype. It's a little unfortunate for that archetype, but that archetype is still good. It just kind of happened to where a few of them made top 16, but none of them made top 8. I wouldn't say that Sneasler's on Fraud Watch. I definitely wouldn't say Rillaboom's on Fraud Watch. I think that Mon is like one of the best in the format. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, especially when it comes to single elimination, sometimes stuff like that happens, and it should be taken with a grain of salt.
Right. And that's also, yeah, that's my take on it too. Especially, I mean, I think being good into Primarina, being good into Rillaboom, being good into King Gambit. I mean, it's a fighting type. There's so many fighting types in the format. So that one isn't as unique. Beating King Gambit, beating like Porygon 2, stuff like that. But it's just got incredible offensive typing. So yeah, I think that Sneasler on Fraud Watch. We'll have to see how it develops over time. We'll have to see how it does at Dortmund Regionals in a couple of weeks, at Louisville Regionals next month. But for now, I would not disrespect Sneasler. I still think it is, maybe not the best Pokemon in the format, but probably in the top 10, top 12 that we're going to see it. I'd be shocked if it started to fall off that top 12 graphic that we see at the beginning of each regional.
Yeah, I think especially with its set variety, either the seed set with Unburden or the Sash set, I think both sets are very good. And I've heard even some rumors about the white herb sneezer being good. I'm a little skeptical on that, but I think when it comes to set variety and its really potent offensive coverage that it has, it's going to be a good mon. I personally really don't like Sneasler because Dire Claw is a move that they sure did program into this game.
Good.
But
I agree with that.
but it's going to be good, and you should have a matchup into it.
Mm-hmm. And I guess on that note, I want to talk about, this is a whole different topic that's tangentially related, but I mentioned this on stream, is that I think that you kind of make your own luck in Pokemon a lot of the time by having moves that can get lucky. You are going to get lucky. And so, we were counting the number of times Paul clicked Blizzard and Freeze Dry didn't get a freeze, for example. And he was still winning anyways. He beat Toler despite, Toler getting one turn wakes and getting and not getting frozen for 4 or 5 straight turns. Because, that's how, but like you create your own luck. And similarly, Nick, you didn't have any moves that can miss except for Population Bomb, I think. Hurricane instead of Rain, I guess. Right? And so you kind of create your own luck in that you can't, it's a lot harder to get unlucky when you put yourself in a position like that.
No, yeah. That's why I know I got a lot of questions on why my Archaudon wasn't Draco Meteor. And that was the reason. That was part of the reason why I just didn't want to miss Draco Meteor. Like, I'd rather just click Dragon Pulse. It's much more consistent. It's more damage, and I just don't want to risk a game on missing a Draco. Like, it's high stakes. I can be consistent, and that's why I ran something like Dragon Pulse.
Mm-hmm. And then, so on that, and bringing it full circle, that's why I think Sneasler is so good, is that on top of just being a mon that has some crazy type coverage, has a crazy attack stat and speed stat for this format, it is just a, like, positive luck Pokemon. You are more likely to get lucky than unlucky if you bring Sneasler to a tournament. And that is really powerful. That is something that cannot be understated, is that you have the potential to high roll a lot more if you have Sneasler, and you're less likely to get unlucky because it doesn't actually have moves that miss and stuff like that. So yeah, I think this Pokemon is really, really good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the one thing about Dialclaw that I would say, because the effect rate is so high that is it even getting lucky? I mean, yeah, of course, getting 3 turn sleeps out of Dialclaw, you could consider that lucky, but it's like the amount you will get in a tournament is a large amount unless you are getting unlucky. It's a 50% effect rate, like, especially if you're running Poison Touch. That's effectively a very high effect rate.
Have you ever seen the Poison Touch Lumberry interaction with Direclaw?
I have. You can get poisoned, eat your berry, and then get poisoned again. It's very
it's so dumb. It's so dumb, dude. Like, why does this move exist? Like, why is that a thing?
Yeah. But yeah, like, because of the effect rate being so high, like, Dire Claw is just such a insane move, crazy, ridiculous move.
All right. So with that, I want to talk about Dawei's team before we move on, and I think we'll talk about a couple other teams too. But definitely want to talk about Dawei's team because they got top 4, and this was an archetype. I'm gonna point out Ethan also used a similar team. And had a really, really good record in Swiss, beat Wolf and then lost in Top Cut in top 16. But yeah, like this Grimmsnarl was Pokemon that I think no one was really expecting to see. It super down in usage. I think a lot of people thought it was kind of mediocre, and it had a really good showing. The Grimmsnarl Annihilate archetype with screens and the slower setup Annihilate did really, really well this weekend. And obviously on 2 very different types of teams. But yeah, I guess, what do you guys think about Dawei's team, and what do you guys think about this archetype in general?
I will say, if you would ask me, Annihilate, the bulk up set is going to do well and it's not going to have Mousehold, that would definitely confuse me. I'm like, what? Like, really? I think, but after looking at this team, I think this team is incredibly cool. A Grimmsnarl is a mon that, from what I've noticed, is definitely better in formats that have higher power levels, because Grimmsnarl is one of the few ways to get up a screen instantly to lower that power level. Like, for example, if you look at NEIC of this year, Shi Liang Tang's Kyogre team, it had Grimmsnarl on it to set up screens to bulk out his Kyogre so you can get Wo Chen and stuff like that. And I brought a similar concept to Worlds, actually. But yeah, especially like in lower power formats, Grimmsnarl is definitely not something that I would expect to be super popular, but it's definitely a mon that I still respect. I know I have a friend who likes running it on his teams a lot. I always joke that he throws a Grimmsnarl on his team and some weird mon that people don't know how to deal with and makes people figure out how to deal with it. But yeah, like I personally think that this team is super cool. I really like the support Volcarona over the setup Volcarona. I think it makes a lot of sense for this team. Yeah, super cool team.
Yeah. Nick, did you have anything to add?
He actually said he mentioned everything I wanted to mention. I was gonna mention the defense. I thought the defensive over offensive Volcarona was a really cool take, and I like that it can. I like that even if your Ursaluna gets like knocked, you can still like get the burn on it with like self wisp on Volcarona, or you can do stuff to play around like a Mungus Spore on your P2 by self wisping with Volcarona, and I thought it was a really cool tech. Do all that kind of stuff. I was actually interested in why it was taunt Grimmsnarl over something like T-Wave, but it's not really like I wasn't too sure on why it was that in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought the Annihilate was cool. I don't know how often they had brought it, but I thought it was pretty cool, and I thought the Pokemon would be pretty broken on screens, just in general.
Yeah. I don't think Dawe was on stream other than their top 8 set and top 4 set. Was that it? And I don't think the Annihilate came to either of those. Oh no, the Annihilate. Yeah, I don't know if the Annihilate came. I'd have to go back and rewatch that, but
I know it didn't come in top 4, and versus my side, it didn't come at all. I thought it just had a bad matchup in the rain. It doesn't have enough turns.
Yeah, but no, I'm always a big fan of seeing the Grimmsnarl screens teams do well. I love Annihilate, like set up Annihilate, and I was saying this at the beginning of the format. It's really hard to justify running Annihilate without Mousehold or without a self proc option when it's just such a fast way to ramp. But now that people have figured out maybe how to deal with Mouse Ape, I think Mouse Ape was maybe one of the biggest. Actually, it did okay, but it was one of the biggest underperformers last weekend in Victory Road. Did okay here, but now that people have more or less kind of figured out their matchup, focusing more on the setup version of Annihilate, and still maybe having the option. We saw Ethan's team, and I think Noah's team had the option to play more aggressively with Mousehold. Dawe did not. But yeah, I think that just having time to set up your Annihilate is actually still really powerful. And that's kind of what we saw in Reg B and Reg C, I think, as people moved away from the Mousehold but kept the Annihilate because it is just a very, very strong Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, Annihilate base stats plus his ability plus his typing plus Rage Fist. I mean, it's just like pretty, honestly, pretty insane Pokemon that I'm a little bit surprised we haven't seen even more of it in some of the previous regulations like Reg B, Reg C, and that probably has something to do with Fluttermane being the #1 mon.
Yep.
But yeah, and then on top of that, you could also run the Scarf Final Gambit set, which is also very good and has in other regulations, even Reg G, like the coaching with it, Cali Ice was a thing. It like crazy mon, Nihile's amazing mon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love that Pokemon. And then I guess scrolling through, like we mentioned, we talked about I think the rest of the teams in top 8, and there are some cool teams in top 16. We might not have time to talk about all of them, but we do have to talk about Wolf's. Maybe the highlight of the entire tournament was Wolf's team. We saw it on back-to-back rounds on stream with Justin Karras and then Wolf, and yeah, I mean, just a super, super cool concept with the Toad Scroll being max speed, really taking advantage of the fact that Mycelium might allows it to Spore Goldengo, and then of course Weezing also lets it Spore Goldengo. It didn't really need that bonus, but it lets it Spore Goldengo quickly, fast, and we saw one interaction that I did not know, and I think probably caught a lot of people off guard over the course of this tournament for both Justin and Wolf, was that if you switch out Weezing while Toadscrew's on the field, it still moves in the normal priority bracket and does not go down to the lowest priority bracket. It's more like the trick lagging tail mechanic that we saw in 2022, and less like the dynamic speeds that we're more used to. And I remember on stream when Justin Karras did that, I was shocked. I was like, oh, I didn't realize it worked that way. But it does make a lot of sense that it works that way, but I would not have noticed that unless I had seen it before. And I think that was a really cool interaction that we saw on stream and probably caught a lot of people off guard.
I mean, I bet you this team entirely just caught people off guard because, like, I first heard that Wolf was running Weezing Toad School. I was like, okay, that's really cool. And then I heard that the Weezing was choice specs, and I was like, oh, what?
What?
Like,
Yeah, me too. Me too. That was my reaction too. Like, what?
yeah, super cool concept. Honestly, I would have never thought of this in a million years. This team is really cool, and as a personal fan of both Corviknight and Garchomp, I do respect this team a lot.
Yeah. I do think that Weezing is actually like maybe just good, even if you don't have the Toad Scroll, right? It is very disruptive. It just disrupts a lot of different game plans, right? Even if you have an Amoonguss, right? You can spore the Goldengos all of a sudden, stuff like that. And its fairy coverage is not the easiest to come by in this format. You're basically stuck with Primarina, and then maybe Sylveon, right? Maybe Grimmsnarl.
Yeah, I think Sylveon's kind of like at that point. Why not run to Primarina? I think Primarina is just kind of better in basically every way.
Right.
Maybe someone can prove me wrong eventually, but yeah, when it comes to fairy types, Primarina is basically the only one. Well, offensive fairies. I mean, this Whimsicott, but that doesn't really count.
Right.
So,
and so Wolf found another one. He said, I don't want to run Primarina.
Yeah.
I've got a better one to run, which is also cool. And maybe we'll see this more on other teams that aren't necessarily full committing to the neutralizing gas gimmick as much, or find different ways to take advantage of neutralizing gas other than Toad Scroll.
Well, yeah, I think this is really smart because outside of Toad Scroll, all these Mons have, I mean, their abilities are okay, but they don't rely on them, like, at all. Especially Typhlosion basically might as well not have an ability. Pawmots, it comes in very rare scenarios. Garchomps doesn't really matter all too much. And Corviknight, Mirror Armor is a good ability, but if you don't have mirror Armor, then they don't have Intimidate, so does it really matter that you don't have Mirror Armor? So I think this is incredibly well set up where the Mons don't actually require their abilities to be good, and thus they fit well with the Weezing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely agree. And then I love Toad Scroll personally. Like it is, I used it in my in-game playthrough just because it has the funniest walking animation. It just looks so funny while the Toad's Cool, is that what it's called? And then Toad Scroll, they both look so funny when they're walking around. And so that's literally why I used it in game. And it's so cool to see it actually have some competitive use.
Yeah, Toad's Cool is one of the funniest mons I've ever seen, I will say. I love the way that thing runs.
Mm-hmm. All right, and so I guess now we've covered all of top 8, most a lot of the teams that we wanted to talk about, a lot of the more unusual teams, and so yeah, I guess I'm gonna open the floor up. Were there any other teams or Pokemon that we want to talk about from this tournament? And chat, if you have anything you want us to talk about, now's a good time to bring it up as well.
The highest finishing Electabuzz. I'm just trying to remember because that is a Pokemon that like most people were leaning before this tournament into so it was Justin into Clefable as the follow me mon of choice. If it wasn't like Mousehold, it was Clefable. But then suddenly out of nowhere, like it kind of felt like out of nowhere, Electabuzz was kind of rediscovered as this mon is actually like really good, and it makes sense. Like Vital Spirit, Follow Me, and being in its defensive typing, press Eviolite makes it like surprisingly bulky. While still having speed control and Electro Web, having taunt, it's a very good mon. And honestly, I am a little bit surprised it did not have a better showing. I thought that mon was like very, very good.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of it was that this tournament really felt like Garchomp's tournament. Garchomp was such an overperforming team. Garchomp and Ursaluna, right, were the two Pokemon that really felt like they overperformed this tournament in aggregate. And so Electabuzz, especially when you pair it with Sneasler and Kingambit, or Sneasler, and we see like a Chandelure, right? It might. I know you have a Rillaboom to stop earthquakes, but I feel like it loses some effectiveness there. And so maybe it wasn't the meta call for this tournament, but I do think it's just an inherently very strong Pokemon. It's one of the best redirectors you can use, and it's still definitely it's going to be around in the format. I just think that these teams maybe did not anticipate the metagame nearly as well as they had to.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, definitely Garchomp has definitely a lot to do with that. Just the ground coverage in general. And yeah, like basically every single team on that list there has a Rillaboom on it to help mitigate that. But it clearly wasn't enough, especially against something like Paul's team. Okay, you have Garchomp for the ground coverage. Oh no, here comes the ice and flying attacks now into the Rillaboom. So yeah, I guess it's just not quite Electabuzz's time because of how good the ground coverage is right now. Which is crazy because if you were to ask me before this tournament what would be the best ground type, if it wasn't, if I like, I would pick one of Ursaluna or the other Ursaluna, and I again, like, I ran into that Blood Moon a few times, but I don't think its showing was. How good was it showing? Were there any in Top Cut? I'm trying to remember.
There was one Blood Moon.
One in top 32, I think.
Yeah, there was one in top 21. I don't know if there was any other in top 32. Let's see. Okay, so Zhou did get top 32 with the Chandelure version, but yeah, it was just Andrew Jenkins who top cut with Blood Moon and lost in top cut immediately, I believe. So none in top 16, notably. So yeah, I think that if we're looking at Pokemon that underperformed this tournament, I definitely think that that Blood Moon was the one of the biggest underperformers.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I still think this Pokemon is strong. I think that people might be using it wrong is part of it. I think that Life Orb Terra Normal is still like a very is kind of thinking about it how we used it in Reg F, Reg G, and I think that people might have to be a little more creative with the type of team with the type of moves and items and Terra types that they run on it, and I think maybe people will find a better way to use it. But right now, I mean, Andrew was the one person who found a lot of success with it. And yeah, and then I guess the one person that I saw that people want to talk about is Keon's team on Joe's team. That was the Torkoal team that I think they both just barely missed out on top cut. Both lost the win and ins, and that was this was the Torkoal jump left team. I think I actually got I got to interview Keon live at the tournament, which is kind of fun, and we talked about it a little bit there. But yeah, this is very similar to the team that Joe won Portland Regionals with back in Reg B, I want to say, or Reg C. Yeah, I think Jump Off especially is the standout, where it has a lot of cool moves: Sleep Powder, Leaf Storm, Tailwind, Encore. It also has Rage Powder. It also has just all sorts of different moves it can run, different sets it can run. It can run a Focus Sash, whatever. So that's a mon that I think is really cool and has not been explored nearly enough in this metagame. These were the two highest placing Torkoal players, and so I think if you're a Torkoal fan, this might be the way to go about looking at it.
It is actually crazy because Joe did have that win with Jump Off, and then, like, I mean, of course you look at its stats and like, okay, yeah, no wonder this thing doesn't have very much usage. But like, you think that after somebody wins a tournament with something that would pick up at least a little bit, but no, Jump Off is just like Joe's favorite, like like a Joey Rex 9 signature mon, and I guess Keaton also built this team with him, so he also ran it. But past that, I wouldn't be surprised if these were the only two jump offs in the entire tournament. So, yeah, very cool mon, very like, I personally, and on top of that, because of how the showdown interaction works with Torkoal Eject Pack, like, you just can't practice against it, and I guess you also can't practice with it, but it's like yeah, like, it's a very cool concept that it's very hard to get good practice against.
To answer your question, these were the only two jump off in the tournament. You can find that on Lattice. Yeah,
that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, you look at the thing stats and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that's pretty much that's most of the teams from this regional. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your questions. With regards to Samurott, we talked about deficiencies of Samurott last week, and Aaron Zhang talked about it on stream as well, so I don't need to go rehash that too much. We talked about the Volby team, and I don't respect Scaladerg, so I'm not going to talk about it. But I do want to talk about the Victory Road tournament real quick, because this was another reasonably sized tournament that was happening this past weekend. I think it started at 1 a.m. Eastern time, so it was basically impossible for any North American players to play in it. But it had a big presence from Europe, from Asia, and from Australia. And so all these other regions kind of got to show off what they were coming up with. And a lot of boring teams, but there was one team that I really wanted to highlight, which is the team that won from Sitchit, which had this pretty incredible Dondozo set. This is a team that we see the King Gambit, Rillaboom, Clefable, Sneasler core quite a bit, but I want to talk about the Dozo set because it's Liquidation, Fissure, Yawn, and Curse, Terra Steel, Covert Cloak, and Sitchit seems to think that it was the call. It put in a lot of work for them, and so yeah, I guess what do you guys think about this team?
Wow, I would never expected to see a solo Dozo. Like I've seen solo Dozo and Restricted, for the Cali Eye, but not in something like this where like Dozo to Giri looks pretty strong, but not the Dozo on its own. It's definitely something surprising.
Well, yeah, especially like if Dozo wasn't with Giri, it was with Tinglu, and obviously Tinglu's not available right now. So, but yeah, I mean, this is a wild set. I haven't even looked at this. I'm gonna be real. That is an absolutely crazy set. Dozo without Protect or lefties.
I wonder what it's there for. Is it the Dozo mirror? I'm sorry, not mirror. But the other Dondozo matchup fix? That's kind of crazy.
Between Clefable and Dondozo, you're not going to lose to another Dozo team.
You never do.
If they bring it. So that is a wild set. Liquidate. I guess they don't want to take damage from themselves, so they have Liquidation instead of Wave Crash. But
I really like their top 5. Though I think I've seen this top 5 running around a lot. I haven't seen the Terra Dragon variant too much. I've seen Terra Fairy and mostly Terra Grass on the Volks. But I think this top 5 is like super broken.
Oh yeah, and if you were to put like say Primarina in the last slot, I mean this team would look pretty normal. And then you look at what's actually there, like, oh wow.
Primarina's on the team right below it. I think they stole it.
Yeah, I do think the Dozo. So I think that the main application is that Yawn is really good at forcing your opponents to switch, and that creates turns for your Volcarona to click Quiver Dance and your King Gambit to click Swords Dance. And so much of these teams are just revolve around like faking out Pokemon or using redirection to set up your big sweepers. And Dozo is just another way to enable those sweepers in a pretty unique way. And also, is a sweeper, I guess, Curse? I don't really understand Curse. That's the one move that really doesn't make sense to me on the
honestly,
set.
I think
I'm wondering how it gets
mode. It's not even Fissure. It's just Curse. Like, when do you ever click Curse? Like, I guess against other mons that can't hurt you, but like, I don't know.
The one guy that got hit by Fissure gotta be so mad.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I mean, I don't really want to talk too much about this tournament because again, we're gonna get a lot more data coming up in the future, and I think Baltimore was the really big tournament of this weekend. But that leaves us with I guess the last thing that we like to do at the end of the show is something called the Calc is Right. So if you are new here, the Calc is Right is a game that we play where one person will list off a damage calc, and then the other people on the show, so in this case the other two of us, will have to guess a number that is the percentage damage that we think that move is going to do. If we are in the damage range, then we are right, and if we are outside the damage range, then we are wrong. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Let's go for it.
Cool. And then I guess I'll let you guys start. If you guys do either of you have a calc in mind that you want to quiz us on?
Ooh.
I mean,
let me see if I can find one from my DMs.
I do actually have one.
Right. Go for it.
So, because this is semi-relevant for the team that I run, let's talk about +1 King Gambit, Terra Dark, Kowtow Cleave into a standard Amoonguss. How much are we thinking that does? Like the standard set that like the 156 bold Amoonguss, let's say.
Like Dreadplate, King Gambit.
The Dreadplate / Black Lashes King Gambit, Terra Dark +1, Kowtow Cleave into that Amoonguss. How much are we thinking?
Thinking between 83 and 96.
All right. So you got to pick one number, and then if you're in the range, then you get it right.
Oh, I gotta pick one number.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm gonna say 94.
94. All right. And you said it was +1 King Gambit?
Yeah, +1 or Helping Hand. I guess it's the same calc.
Right. So I guess I've seen +2 get the knockout. And I don't know, but I know I'm pretty sure +1 does not get the knockout, but I don't know how much it actually does. I'm gonna go a little lower, and I'm gonna say it's gonna do 87%. And I guess with that, let's plug it in. So we have the King Gambit Black Glasses set Terra Dark at +1 attack into an Amoonguss, which is just the standard set, 252, 156. And ooh, okay. So if I'm doing the calc right, it looks like it is doing between 87.7 and 104%. Is that right?
Yep, that is correct.
All right. So
yeah, basically, it's just something that I know personally because I basically can't ever trust that's ever going to KO an Amoonguss if it's physically bulky, and of course I can't really tell until I hit it. So, that one I know by heart.
yeah, and I had the right idea where I said it wasn't going to quite KO, but 87 is a little too low. But Nick, you are right on the money. You almost exactly got that range right too.
No, nice.
You said 90 something, right?
Yeah, 94? You said 90 something.
94?
Yeah,
94,
you got it. You got it basically in the middle.
You were smack dab in the middle of that range.
That sounds about right.
All right. And then, Nick, did you have a calc in mind?
I did actually. This interaction you might see if you've been running Dragapult, you might see this one quite often. How much do you guys think that the let me see. How much do you guys think that a Terra Dragapult, the Choice Banded Outrage set does into a standard Ensign? So this would be the 156 Impish set with max HP.
And then what's the Dragapult set? Choice Banded.
The Dragapult Choice Banded Terra is Choice Band Terra Dragon Outrage.
Adamant?
This is Jolly.
Jolly, okay.
Ooh.
I don't have to.
I do not know this one at all.
My guess is because Ensign is the greatest Pokemon ever that it lives. I am going to say 90%.
I do not think that it lives. I am pretty sure that this is going to knock out, and so I don't know how much it knocks out by, but I'm going to go and say 105 and say it just barely knocks out.
So the range is 81 to 96 on 252 HP, 156 plus defense.
All right, I'm going to pull it up. So Terra Dragon, Jolly, into Incineroar, which is just 252, 156, bold, and Outrage is not in the calc. Alex, pick your calc. All right, I'm getting okay. What did I do wrong? Because I'm seeing 81 to 96%.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was wrong. It actually does not KO. Yeah. Wow. Incineroar
if it was adamant, you would actually be correct. If you would be correct if it was adamant that it's a roll on adamant. It's like 30%, which is crazy. Yeah. Dragapult hits like a truck, man. Like I don't think people understand like how hard this thing hits.
Wait, really? I thought it was hit harder.
I had to play one around.
If I'm clicking Outrage, I better take a knockout. That's the way I see it. Because otherwise, especially if you're committing your Terra, it's scary for sure. The banned Dragonite Outrage is terrifying. Like on the team that I gotta use, the Dozo team. But this is actually a little underwhelming for me. I thought it would do more.
Yeah, I think the one that I ran into when I was playing in Baltimore was Adamant, because that thing was hitting like an absolute truck.
We see Alex in chat too. Sorry. I was out here keeping the Reg C standard. Nah, the metagame's changed, man. People are in outrage on their bonds. Nah, you're good. It's Outrage or Terra Blast, right? You can't. It's one of the two moves. I think it's what most people are picking between.
Right.
But yeah, so I guess I also have a calc, and this one is more of a GC calc because I noticed, I guess it's not necessarily a GC calc. I saw that there was one person who was brave enough to not run Assault Vest and not run a damage boosting item on the Rillaboom, and
Oh,
instead
really?
they ran. I saw. I think they made D2 with Bullet Seed Rillaboom with loaded dice.
Is that for your Archaladon?
I don't remember the rest of the team. I can pull it up. But the question that I had is actually against the Rain team. You got your Sash Pelipper, right? And you ran Sash Pelipper, so you should know this one. And you've got you got 4 HP, 0 defense on your Sash Pelipper. And you are taking on a Rillaboom that is going to get 4 hits with their Bullet Seed. And they are running 36 attack adamants. How much damage is it doing with 4 hits?
Bullet Speed, how much is Bullet Speed base power? Base power is
It's
25.
per hit, so essentially 100 base power.
100 base power. I know Woodhammer brings you to Sash, guaranteed. So Woodhammer would kill you. Glide does around like 60.
All right. Before you reveal too much, Lorenzo, do you have a guess?
My guess, 36 attack adamant is not that strong. I think this would KO if this was like 252 adamant. It not being 252 adamant, I'm going to say it's going to come very close to KOing, but it doesn't KO. Let me say 95%.
95%. And all right, Nick, you're the Pelipper expert. What do you think?
I think I agree with him. I think that if it was 252 adamant, you'd always net the KO at 4 hits. But I'm pretty sure this one needs 5 hits to hit the KO. I'm actually gonna say it's gonna do around like 83-ish.
All right, you said 83-ish. This is actually something that I looked at using for the GC and decided that it didn't do nearly enough. So, Nick, you said 83. Lorenzo, what did you say again?
95.
95. And so the answer is, Nick, you are right on the money with 4 hits. It does between 73.5 and 91%. So it doesn't get the knockout. It doesn't even come close to getting the knockout. And in fact, the sad part is, even if you are max attack adamant, you still are not guaranteed the knockout.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, granted, it is a 50-50 whether you get 4 or 5 hits, and it's also still a roll. But yeah, this Mon, it seems pretty cool, but it does not nearly do enough damage to let me really feel confident in using it as a rain check.
I wonder if I think with Terra Grass, you'd probably be able to make that fairly.
I don't know if you want to use a Rillaboom as a rain check anyway, because you're giving their Archaladon grassy terrain, which they'll love. I don't know if you want to use Rillaboom as a rain
Yeah,
check.
it's true. And how is Rillaboom supposed to hurt Archaladon anyways? So
You loaded dice to Pelipper and they switch an Archaladon. No.
Oh no. But yeah, and the GC, they're never gonna expect that. But
Yeah.
But it would be funny to see it happen. See Archaladon get 5 boosts from your 5 hit bullet seed.
Yeah, well, so I ran Bullet Seed Serena with Archaludon at Vancouver Regionals last year, and that was part of my game plan. Was just I'm going to side Bullet Seed and body press stuff, and I thought that was also really cute. So I was looking at side Bullet Seed applications and also offensive applications, but yeah, it's not quite doing enough to justify. But maybe someone else will see it. I think someone, again, I can pull it up. Someone used this set at the regional and at least got championship points with it. I was looking for any other item to run. Loaded dice. There were 3 of them. Yeah, Christian Dam used it on just a standard looking team. No, nothing. But yeah, just wanted to click loaded dice to break those sashes, and did quite well. So, thank you for.
It's not a bad set. I actually think loaded dice Rillaboom is like usable. I think it's. I mean, of course, people are going to default to AV, and I've seen some good players use the Miracle Seed set. But I mean, I think it's reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Miracle Seed had some nasty calc from how was when POW was legal, like back in formats, of course, where POW was legal, right? I really liked the Miracle Seed plus POW, and it hits so hard with Woodhammer. Like people would be so surprised, like, wait, that kills with POW? It was like a monster, man.
Mm-hmm. And so with that, I think that is going to sort of end it for us. Again, if you missed out on any part of this, if you !YT in chat, you can find this on YouTube tomorrow. And so definitely look forward to that. Look forward to some more content as well, some team reports and stuff. And so, yeah, with that, we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to send you over to Sableye VGC, who also made day 2 with the chicken, with Blaziken. And he had a team report on his channel as well, where he talked about how he got, I forget how he finished, but he made day 2 at this regional with the Blaziken, which is super cool to see. So go say hi to him, let him know where you came from, and thank you both for coming by and sticking around for this entire time. I really appreciate all of your input into what the metagame looks like at Baltimore Regionals.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It was awesome.
Great, thanks, man.